It is Thursday, July 11th, 2019. It is 6:30 p.m. and this is Public Hospital District Number 4, King County Board of Commissioners meeting and agenda that I have just called to order. Shall we stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have roll call.
President Norris,
Here.
Vice President Herron,
Here.
Secretary Spikers,
Here.
Commissioner Pollard,
Here.
Commissioner Carter.
Here. Do I have approval of the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Pollard?
Yeah, I think we need to move this executive session to another night. We just got some documentation on that a couple of days ago. It bears reading, about 8 or 10 pages. And also, I think we need to discuss the instrument that will be used to evaluate this public employee. So I'm going to vote no on the agenda because I think that should be moved to another meeting. There's no rush on that.
Actually, I think there is. I think we do have a timeline that we're supposed to be doing things like that on. And it hasn't been done for,
Our bylaws says
Yeah.
90 days.
yeah.
Well, that's when it can be done, but the fact is it doesn't have to be done in 20 days. But at any rate, on that basis, I will not vote in to approve the agenda.
Okay. But we already, did we not vote for an
We haven't
approval?
voted.
Shall I have, do I have anybody that wants to make a motion to?
I did.
Okay, and we got a second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
I request a roll call vote, please.
President Norris,
Here? Yes.
your vote.
Yes.
Vice President Herron,
Yes?
Secretary Spikers,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollard,
No?
Commissioner Carter.
Yes. Thank you. Approval of the agenda, we already did that. Communications. I want to share something that I'd like to encourage all of us to do. We need to do a health assessment. This is our 2016 health assessment. I pulled it off our webpage and off the internet, and so it's public. I would suggest that you print it off and read it so we have some basis as we move forward and as we continue to try to meet the needs of our community. And it needs to be done by the end of the year. So we will probably be doing it later, probably November. Does that sound about right? In November?
Question. Since we're going through this process of, I guess I would call affiliation, is this something that's rather urgent to do now that we're in this stage of due diligence? This should have been done prior.
It needs to be done in 2019. It needs to be done in this year.
That is, if we are operating more regular and not with a process of affiliating.
Has to be done regardless.
That's $20,000 from what I hear.
That's what I understand.
$20,000 to do enough.
It's required by
So-
law.
I'd add, though, that I think it's important that we do it so that we have a guiding document coming out of the transaction so that we still know where we should be focusing our efforts for the community and for the public good, so that we have something to say, this is current, this is who we're going to help, and these are our greatest needs.
But
Yes, Commissioner.
Yeah,
Commissioner
it's
Pollard?
unfortunate that the previous community needs job or assessment has been removed from our website. I'd like to see that
Still
put
there.
back.
It's
Well,
It's
I want
2016,
public
or did you want
information.
one earlier?
This one is on there,
Yeah.
but the one that was done in 2013 by Joe Larson, I didn't find on that page.
this is the one that Joe
13
Larson
one.
did.
The previous one,
The
which
previous one.
it probably was taken down for lack of being current.
Because
It's been gone from
this
the website.
community health needs assessment is quite different from the one that was done prior to that. because it's even called a kind of a data report.
Data-driven report?
And it really is a copy of Overlake.
No, it's not a copy of Overlake.
Well, to some extent, it is a copy of the Overlake needs assessment. We need to do our own needs assessment.
I believe we are going to do that later this year. So this just gives you what happened before, what the information they had before, and then when we do 2019, we'll have a comparison.
That's a good idea. And then we also ought to compare it with the one prior that Joe Larson did. So it needs to be restored to the website or copies sent around to the commissioners.
I guess my question, when we started in the process of affiliating with Overlay, did they not request for us to provide them a more current community assessment, health assessment? They did not request, so it means they were just satisfied with what they saw. Is that right?
Yes, you may speak.
Probably part of the reason is as Overlay does their own community health needs assessment, our community is included in their community health needs assessment. They recognize this as being part of their market area. So it's probably why they didn't ask for anything from us, because they actually already had it in hand.
I just want to remind the board that for the first 4 months of this year, we were below expectations and were below budget for the first 4 months. I would hope that we would forego this cost until the last possible time for this year. If not, put it off into 2020, the cost, maybe do it at the end of the year. And I really think for purposes of having some kind of leverage with a potential partner Overlay, we cannot afford to have a cost, keep on bringing a cost for our bottom line. We will look like low-hanging fruit if we do. So I'm going to ask that any vote or anything that we do concerning the needs assessment be done at the end of the year. August 12th, I had sent out some information to people that they can go out to take a look, go to the meeting, the community
Snoqualmie
Valley
Community
Community Network has
Yes.
done an assessment of needs in the valley. They'll be presenting that on August 12th. We could obtain it, not use it as our own, but we can obtain some information from it, at least at that point, and be able to help us in the future, or be able to use it for purposes of negotiating what we want for our definitive agreement.
And I think the more input we have, the better prepared we are to know what our needs are and what we're looking for.
That meeting in August regarding the survey that was taken will be of limited use for us. I attended the meeting of the community health group down in Fall City. I've attended their meetings every month as a hospital representative. And that's one you used to attend, Daryl, but you go to the board meeting, but you don't necessarily go to the health committee meeting.
I have in the past, and
You
I
have
do
in the
go to the
past.
board meetings, but I've withdrawn from the board recently.
Yeah, but at any rate, the person who's involved with that, the director of the North Bend Senior Center, made a report, but it appears that the survey they're doing, which by the way includes Duval, and outside of our district, and therefore skews the district report. I think that that will be of limited use for us. We can't depend much on that, but I'm sure we can pick up a few ideas from it. But I'd like to know, what are we really talking about? What did we pay Joe Larson to do that assessment in 2013?
Since that time, the IRS has put together some standards of what
Yes.
you're supposed to accomplish.
Yes.
And so the quotes that we have in hand range anywhere from $12,000 to $18,000 to do it according to the IRS standards.
Yeah, you're right. Those standards, by the way, I have copies of those. the need for the community assessment report comes from two areas. One is IRS, and you just mentioned IRS. And they're very specific to what they expect to see in a community health needs assessment. And the other demand is the Affordable Care Act, which says you must comply with IRS standards on preparing this report if you're going to be in compliance with the law. So these two pressures come down on us, and we have to meet them.
I think we've met them in the past, and I think that's the intention.
Thank you.
And I thank you for expressing that, Mr. Pollard.
Dr.
Is there anybody else that has anything to say? Okay, Dr. Wick.
All right, yeah, so in your packet, a quick summary from my report. So I want to take a moment to say welcome to Karen Denton. So this is her first time with us. I had spoken about her before in prior months. So into the role of COO and CNO. Right out of the gate, she's taken on some tasks from us. So she's reviewing some of our salary expenses for some savings opportunities because as we were talking, as David was referencing earlier, we've had higher than planned costs this year, especially in our salaries. So she's looking for ways that we can do some recovery in that regard over the rest of the year, as well as championing a new collaborative contract that we have for staffing. And then there'll be many more things that we send her direction. Steve has also seamlessly transitioned to his 0.5 FTE in his last month.
I thought you had done that for the last year.
Okay, Commissioner Pollard, you still
Okay.
got a turn.
That was rather hideous.
Thing out of it. June did conclude below volume in regard to budget, so lots of attention there. But I do want to point out that for the last 14 days, we have been at 25. So in fact, we have had a couple of admissions that have been delayed because we didn't have room for them to come in. So nice start to the month of July there. Many of us were at the Chelan conference, so we missed your Commissioner Pollard being there. But as we anticipated, there was going to be a very rich agenda, and so that delivered. They had lots of themes, especially around changing times, but the associated opportunities that are associated with the changing times, and then a value of community relationships, both in understanding our community needs, but also addressing community needs. So a nice association with the conversation that we just had here. This is community event season, and so you'll hear in the medical committee report quite a few activities that we either have just finished or we're getting ready to jump into, so Emma will fill us in on that. And then David sent out a nice forward to us as a group for education around an executive order that just went out around pricing transparency in the healthcare industry, as well as assuring access to value healthcare, so not just lower cost, but both cost and quality is what defines value. And so I thought it might be worth just speaking to that just immediately for us. We do not participate in surprise billing. That is something that is very important to us, in that any care that is delivered in our facility is billed under our name. So that means it's billed through our relationships with our payers. And so that helps patients to not experience any surprises of having somebody who's out of network. So anybody who works with us is always in all the same networks we are in. We also have a tool in our billing department. The name of it is RICAN. But one of the things that it does is allows us to give great estimates to patients. So the patient can say, how much will a procedure or an experience cost me? And we can take their insurance, their plan, run it through there and give them insight into what their out-of-pocket costs will be. And so we've had that in place for about 3 years now. And so it gets used pretty regularly.
Very much.
Yes, yeah, every day.
Yeah,
Probably
that's
every
great.
day it gets used. Yeah, and then our charge master is posted to our website, which is a requirement, but we were in compliance with it in December before it became a requirement in January. We also very much welcome the ideas that are being proposed right now around changing some of the HRA rules, because that again is to the benefit of accessing healthcare, allowing collaboration across state lines, because there's a lot of rich relationships that are going on between Washington and Oregon and Washington and Idaho. And then most importantly, the support of the alignment of quality measures across all of the federal agencies, because that is a huge burden, just to workforce burden, to be able to respond to a quality measure from one federal agency that you have to respond to just a nuanced difference, which means an entirely reworked project to another federal agency. So I just thought it would be valuable to speak to that, because it was a very good highlight of what's coming about. We have just begun planning a Medicare education session this fall to help many people in our community who are going to be confronted with decisions about, do I do a Medicare Advantage program? Do I do a Medicare Supplement program? What's the difference between the two? What would be my particular best choice? And so it seems like a great opportunity to have just one more additional connection to people in our community and be the ones who represent from a neutral position as opposed to a sales position. So again, planning just begun on that, but we only have a couple months to put it together. And then just the last thing I wanted to share, just my appreciation again, at your willingness to change this month's work study, because you did it to allow me to take a vacation. So I appreciate that. And any questions, I'll turn it back over.
Any questions from the board?
Well, regarding this next to last paragraph, planning just begun on the Medicare education program as well as support eligible community members in the decisions regarding Medicare Advantage versus Medicare Supplement. Why not just also Medicare and what it covers? Include that as a general topic.
Absolutely.
So,
Because we like that choice.
yeah, that's what I anticipate.
You can't have the advantage without the other.
And, regarding the Chelan conference, I'd like to make a comment. I wasn't able to go this time for the first time in 7 years. But the good thing is they have a lot of the presentations online.
Oh, good.
And as a matter of fact, I looked up, I guess it was this morning or yesterday, Oscar Ray's presentation and all of his slides, they're available online. So, and by the way, for you, those of you that don't know it, he is representative, or he is the MRSC person, the go-to person on questions regarding public hospital districts, and he's a very nice fellow and very helpful at MRSC. All you have to do is Google MRSC and then ask for Oscar Klein. He's very good. But at any rate, his presentation and other presentations from Chelan are online. So didn't totally miss it.
Good.
Okay. Ready to move on? And if we move on, our general counsel, Skip Hauser.
Thank you, Madam President and Commissioners, board members, CEO and COO now. I'm going to give you your Robert's Rules reminder for the evening. And this pertains to, everybody get one?
Yeah.
I'll give you this one. This pertains tonight to the topic, YouTube, very good, I thought I made it.
Thank you, sir.
This pertains to point of order. So, it's a very interesting concept. You should suggest this by saying, I raise a question of order, but we all use vernacular, point of order. Madam Chairman, Madam President, point of order. But you're supposed to say, raise a question of order. You're then calling upon the chair for a ruling and an enforcement. So you're asking the chair to rule on your question and enforce it if appropriate. You have given the chair the authority under Robert's Rules and under your rules of procedure to make rulings. Now, there's an appeal process. There's also a process where the chair can say, I'm not sure what to do here, so I'm going to open it up to the board. So let me walk you through this. A point of order request takes precedent over any pending question. It yields to all privileged motions. It yields to a motion to lay the motion question on the table in cases where they are in order and time. So it is a highest priority except for yielding to the motion to lay on the table. If somebody's already said, I move that we lay this on the table, and usually when you want to lay it on the table, because you want to continue, you want to set it aside for a week or a or lay on the table indefinitely until you bring it off the table. Having said that, then, it goes through, if a point of order adheres to the pending questions, adhere to a pending question with reference to either of those, don't worry about that. That's what you have counsel and legal assistance for. If somebody says, wait a minute, I don't think a point of order is in order, I'll help you with that. But 99% of the time, it's going to be in order. Here's the second part, it's a paragraph from the bottom, full paragraph, still part of number 1. In cases where the chair, being in doubt, refers the point of order to the judgment of the assembly, and where the point thereby becomes debatable. But I'm going to tell you shortly that it's not debatable normally. It's just a ruling and you move on. But it can become debatable if the chair says, I am in doubt. I am not certain as to your point of order request, and I don't know how to enforce it or rule on it. Therefore, I'm going to give it to the board or what's called the assembly. Then it's debatable, and you have a discussion like you would a motion. It can be applied to any breach of the assembly's rules, so long as it's handled in the normal manner by ruled upon by the chair, no subsidiary motion can be applied to. So the chair has a lot of power when a point of order comes across because they're going to make a ruling. Now, if they're in doubt, which most chairmen are normally not in doubt, they can get assistance from staff, but they would normally make a ruling. If they are in doubt, they refer the point of order to the judgment of the assembly, meaning you as the body, and it becomes debatable. The characteristics for that are found on pages 256 and 257. Thirdly, it is in order when another has the floor to interrupt that person. That's the only time you should ever interrupt. You should not interrupt to argue or debate, to otherwise slander or question somebody's integrity or character, but it would be okay to say, I'm interrupting you because of a point of order. That is when the only time it's okay to interrupt. It does not require a second. So if you say point of order, you don't have to wait for a second. The chair is going to acknowledge you at the point of order. It's not debatable. But the chair's consent, though, remember I said it can become debatable because it can then give into the membership. At that point, the chair can say, though, look, it's not debatable, but I'm not certain. I want you to explain your point. So explain your point, and knowledgeable or interested members can be heard by way of explanation. So that's kind of a little mini debate without following the rules of debate, where the chair says, go ahead and explain that. Does anybody ever have any thoughts? So there's kind of this other subset process where the chair is still going to make the ruling, has not given it to the membership, but wants more information.
A question,
Yes.
can a member appeal the ruling of
Yes.
the chair?
Yes, we'll get to the appeal at the end.
Oh,
You're
well,
2
that's-
steps ahead.
Oh,
That's all right. Mr. Pollard, I've learned to know that you're sometimes ahead of me. So, in this case, you are again. It is not amendable, so you can't amend a point of order. You know, Madam Chair, I'd like to amend my point of order. No, it's not amendable. You have to deal with the point of order that's before the body. And then it's normally ruled upon by the chair. No vote is taken unless the chair is in doubt. Or, you go, Commissioner Pollard, the ruling is appealed. How do you appeal the ruling? Well, it can't be reconsidered, but here's how you grounds for point of order. It is the right of every member who notices a breach of the rules to insist on their enforcement. If the chair notices a breach, he corrects the matter immediately. If he fails to do so, and again, I apologize on behalf of Robert, he always uses the he pronoun instead of she. But if he fails to do so through the oversight or otherwise, any member can make the appropriate point of order. The presiding officer may wish to engage in brief research or consult with the parliamentarian before ruling, and may allow the assembly to stand at ease while he does so. In the event while the presiding officer has made a ruling, any 2 members can appeal, one making the appeal and the other seconding. So what would happen, Commissioner Pollard, if you made a point of order, the chair has ruled, if you want to appeal the point of order, you must make the motion, I move to appeal the point of order. You must get a second, it has to be a second member. If there is no second, your appeal would die.
Is there discussion of the motion?
If you do get a second on the appeal, there's no discussion yet.
Okay.
Once you get your second on the appeal, then it becomes debatable and it's discussion, just like a motion.
Thank you.
You know, that's way, way, way down at the end. If a member is uncertain as to whether or not there's a breach on which a point of order can be made, he can make a parliamentary inquiry of the chair. We'll do that for another week or month. But then you could say, Madam Chair, a parliamentary inquiry. That's different than a point of order. That's because you're not certain whether there's been a breach, and you want the chair to check with the parliamentarian to see if there's been a breach. So I would just caution and suggest to you that don't breach the rules, comply with all the requirements, and we don't ever have to have point of orders or parliamentary inquiries.
Thank you.
Yes.
Isn't there such a thing as,
Point of order, you're supposed to
Yeah.
ask the chair if you can ask a question.
maybe you ask questions at this point, Madam
Let
Chair.
let me confer with Madam Chair. Madam Chair, may your membership ask questions directly to the speaker? All right. Your
Commissioner Pollard.
request has been granted.
Yeah,
Chair
Commissioner Pollard.
recognizes.
Well, the question is, isn't there also something about, not parliamentary inquiry, but a point of information, something like that, isn't there?
I don't believe so. I think we do that in the vernacular where you say, I need a point of information, I need a point of clarification, or something like that.
Yeah.
If there's a motion pending, you can ask the maker of the motion to clarify it. But normally, I don't know of a general blanket
Okay,
point of information.
Okay.
But I will research that and get back to you.
thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pollard. Are there any other questions from the board members?
I have a question. Can I appeal my case of what the errors you made? I'm just kidding. Of the point of order, no, that's okay. I'm just,
Yes. Your
It's absolutely-
timeframe for that has to occur before the
how many
next
days?
action
Oh, the
occurs.
next,
Yeah.
that's the question.
Right, you
Okay,
could
so
ask
the
for a
next-
reconsideration, but all that opportunity now has been.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Downstream.
I know there's a time frame for that.
Okay.
Okay, that answers my question.
I'm good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, do I have a consent agenda? Somebody for a motion on a consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
I have a question or two.
Okay, Commissioner Pollard.
Okay, it's just that I think that the listing of commissioners should be in strict alphabetical order after the officers. So in this case, on these minutes that came forth today, Jen Carter, a new commissioner, her name should be above mine, and that would be in alphabetical order. And at the present time, her name follows mine for some reason, I don't know. See what I'm saying?
Yes, we will let our secretary.
I believe it's in your bylaws that seniority,
Yeah, it's in the
commissioners by
Yeah.
seniority are
It's not by alphabetical order. It's
Is it
not
by
offices.
seniority or, is that the only option? It has to be by seniority?
It's listed after officers, they're to be listed by seniority.
That's in our bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Maybe we vote?
Hmm?
Maybe we vote?
Yes, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, we move on. Okay, approval, I don't even know where we were. Finance Committee, Commissioner Spikers.
Thank you. Great month. So you've got the comments, I believe, from May. And we did have a very good one. We had some 4 months and they were, February was a 4 month because we were shut down for 8.5 days. So, and that kind of precipitated a bad month for March. So we're right on track again. Had good numbers all around. Very interesting if you look at, the average daily census, emergency, outpatient rehab, clinics, imaging are all up. So average daily census is getting just about to budget, and I suspect after July, hopefully it'll probably be at or above. So things are looking up. And I asked for some really detailed information from our staff, and we got some really great ideas, and there's some new service lines that are going to be implemented. The sleep clinic launches on July 24th. That's an ROI of less than a month on that. There's a reference lab, and I've talked to people that deal with PACMed or PACLab and what's the other one? LabCorp, and people hate them. There's no service, nothing. They can't get answers, they can't get results or turnarounds. Well, guess what we're doing? We've got capacity by not even adding any employees, right? To do the sampling and testing and have better service, and we can turn around, we can actually make money doing it. To a lot of the smaller clinics around town, because they're small, they're not given much credence, I guess, by PAC Lab and whatnot. But we're gonna be able to, instead of doing one sample to one test, we could put 15, up to 15 of the same type of testing all at once, and take the same amount of time to test them. And we can actually charge for it. So it's a great service for the surrounding clinics around Puget Sound area here, and we get paid with no extra cost. Maybe some municipal costs of our utensils or our instrument, whatever we're doing. Yeah.
Supplies.
Yeah, supplies. So that's great. Not only that, we're not done yet. We are now providing credentialing and for the collaborative. As of August 1st, we will be anyway. And we will be able to charge for that. So, you know, anytime we can make $5,000 here or you know, $5,000 there, it's all adds up for a small hospital like ours or a small organization. And that's why I did say something about doing that, the census, healthcare census, yeah, assessment, I should say. And, you know, that's what we are. We're on kind of like a 5,000, 10,000 here and 20,000 there makes a big difference for the month. And so I hope that you understand that this is big for us. At 5,000 or 10,000 here is really big because it can make us look really well at the end of the year. If it's only a few thousand a month, it can indeed make us look a lot better at the end of the year. So the Kroger enrollment just started not too long ago, right?
This week.
Yeah, so that's a biggie because that's the QFC, Fred Meyer, and those are the ones that we get reimbursed for costs for that. Yeah, yeah. So we're going to start getting some more money from that. Go ahead.
What is the collaborative? What is the primary source verification? I just don't know what that means.
The collaborative? Oh, our rural health collaborative, there's about 18 hospitals that we
okay.
have, and we share services, supplies, orders, insurance, all kinds of things to get our
Bulk,
costs.
cheap cost.
I
Bigger
see.
bulk,
Okay.
get a better deal.
All right.
Thank you.
So, and then I did ask for, well, what's the deal? We need some expense reduction. Because, you know, we haven't had that census, right? So we're working on it, and Karen will be working on it, I'm sure, very quickly. And so I think by the end of the year, I really think that we will end up being in a much better position, but I was hoping we'd do it quicker and quicker so that we're not low-hanging fruit when we're doing this definitive agreement. And unfortunately, right now, it may not look good, but I think at the end of the year, we'll come out okay. And I've asked staff to look again at benchmarking, accountability, and productivity benchmarking. So those are big things. And it used to be where I had to actually ask about these things like every month and nag the staff about certain things. I kind of delayed. I just said, hey, you know, what's going on? And, you know, I understand we've had February and March, you know, and now it's within a couple of weeks I got a really good response, and it didn't take, you know, 6 months. So it was really good to see that the staff were reactive to getting, you know, a better perspective on our financials. So our accounts receivable, speaking of Medicare Advantage, Commissioner Pollak, there's a long wait to get paid
AR,
on
accounts
AR.
receivable.
Yeah, and that, we had a large accounts receivable with respect to Medicare Advantage folks. And so our AR went up, and so I'm just letting you know that when that goes up, Medicare Advantage use, we will end up with a higher AR.
Does that depend on the company that is involved?
No,
It's Medicare, it is Medicare.
Medicare
it is Medicare. And it's
run by Medicare.
Yes.
So,
over
So
there.
anyway,
Yeah, let me clarify. What Medicare Advantage is provided by insurance companies under contract with Medicare. Medicare is really set up to pay us quickly, and insurance companies, it takes longer. So if you have more Medicare Advantage patients, it takes a little bit longer, it takes longer each one.
and I apologize, we didn't get this, the finance packet out because of the last week I was out of town. I'm sure Val was not working on the 4th. So, and we finally got to it on Monday, I think, or Tuesday, I don't remember. So I apologize, it's not coming out in a timely fashion. Partly just I was out of town, partly Val was out of town. It's just hard to get it out. I didn't think that it was a serious problem because we had a pretty good month, and that's why I don't think it's disadvantages. But if you do have any questions, there's a lot of detailed information. And I go into real big detail about things in here. If you have any questions, go right ahead.
You mean on anything in the report? Questions about anything?
Yeah, anything in this report?
Commissioner Pollard, the chair recognizes you.
Yeah. Okay, how much did we have to invest for the soup center?
5,000?
Minimal.
Okay.
That's our ROI is less than a month. We'll get that back by next month.
Could you explain a little more what the Kroger enrollment is? Is that a healthcare plan or only prescriptions, or what is that?
That's from our prescriptions. We get a percentage of all of the prescriptions that go through that use our hospital name to get prescriptions.
So if
It's a government program.
So if our hospital or a doctor in our hospital writes a prescription and it goes to Kroger, we get some kind of.
Yes.
And that's a 340B program.
It's not a lot per prescription, but it all adds up to be about $100 and some thousand.
Yeah, it adds up pretty well.
So,
Yeah.
so,
That's good.
It's a program.
I didn't know about that.
We've been in that
Well, it's a
program for
start.
a while.
Right.
we just started the Kroger part of it because they were in a dilemma where they couldn't accept anybody new until just recently, and then when we reapplied, we were able to get in.
Do we have any other partners like that?
Yes, we do. We have Safeway, don't we? And we
Bartell,
have,
Dobbs.
yeah.
Safeway and what, who else?
Bartell.
Bartell. Yeah. Well, he's getting some of my money too.
Thank you.
Is that the end of your report?
That's the end of my report unless there's questions. It is a good report, so I'm going to stand on the report.
Well, I think Commissioner Pollard's already asked questions. Jen or Anna, do either one of you have any
No
questions?
questions. Thank you. Good luck.
Okay, then we will move on.
Warrants.
What's that?
The warrants.
Warrants.
Oh, I have one last thing. I ask at this time to approve the payroll warrants, I should say, accounts payable warrants, the warrants, payroll warrants, hospital and clinic payroll, auto deposits, hospital and clinic payroll tax, hospital and clinic retirement, 457, 403B, 403B match plans at this time in the amount of $2,739,989.39. As I said, it's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Do I hear a second?
We hear. Second?
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in
Ask for
favor?
a roll call vote, please.
Okay.
President Norris,
Yes.
Vice President Aaron,
Yes?
Secretary Spikers,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollard,
No?
Commissioner Carter.
Yes.
It passes
Okay.
4-1.
4-1.
Sign it. Oh, not here.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have medical committee.
Okay, lots of fun things happening in the community. Of course, this is the community events season, and our hospital has been involved in many different events here in June and July. As the first aid events for the Relay for Life, that was June 15. HOA, the Homeowners Association, 4th of July. Red, White, and Boom, 4th of July Health Fair events in Echo Glen. June 18, ZTEC, July 9. This is a manufacturing company here on the ridge. It's not open to the public, but we participated as well. And the Issaquah Sports Combined last July 13th. That's what's happening in the community. That's our involvement. Hospital system-wide, our IT infrastructure upgrade, June 24, 26. These are our multiple appliances that is needed almost at the end of their supported life. At the end now. It's end of life issues here. In addition to continued cybersecurity features, users will experience enhanced speed and single sign-on feature. I want to report on the inpatient swing beds and I should, yeah. 2019 budget, we have, it's 22.891%. In June, it's did drop a little bit, 21.5, but overall, in June 2019, year to date, it's 22.4, so that's not too bad. In the lab area, the reference lab service is in collaboration with Sound Medical Laboratory Services to surrounding clinics. First site was July 1st. This is good news. 4 more clinics are due to join soon. The sleep Medicare service that Commissioner Spikers alluded to, set to launch July 18. Friends of Youth, we are discontinuing our primary care services in North Bend this month due to low volumes. Behavioral health services will continue at SRMC, that's our Snoqualmie Medical Center, by the Friends of Youth Counselors. Behavioral health services capacity exhausted, initiating assessment of current needs to guide which specific skill sets to select for. And I believe that we're looking at for a nurse practitioner that might be, that's just a, yeah, to be figured out. And that's my report. Thank you.
You can.
Will the Friends of Youth reopen when school starts again, do you know?
There's no plan on that right now because the chance of really utilizing our facilities right is great, or the referrals are very limited, right? We're not getting the big bang for our services.
Yeah, we found that what they thought at the beginning would be a pretty significant volume just didn't turn out to be the case. And we intentionally stayed through the school year so that we could observe and kind of get every opportunity, and it just didn't happen. And there's actually some technical reasons within the insurance payer world why there were some barriers there, and I'd be happy to give you those in more detail.
Okay.
Just so it doesn't consume too much time here. But we really felt like that we gave it a great
Good
shot.
time, yeah.
But they have had a great impact, with us having them, giving them space in our rich clinic. So we're happy to support that continually. What a great community service.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other questions for Commissioner Commissioner Pollard?
Yeah, I have several questions regarding the sleep lab. And we found out that we invested $5,000, as I understand it, approximately.
No, it's not.
Yeah, okay. Other sleep labs in the area include overlay.
No, they don't have.
Since when?
They don't have one. I never did have one.
Well,
They're a
I
contract
have
with
One
Yeah.
about 10 years
Sleep
ago,
lab.
10 to 12 years ago.
Okay, well, I'll send you some.
Excuse me, one person at a time, please. Commissioner
Could we
Pollard?
have a relaxation of the rules to have informal
Commissioner
informal
Pollard?
discussion?
You can't have everybody talking at once. You were talking, David was talking, and Emma was talking. If you want to finish, you can finish right now, or talk.
Well, at any rate, if you go on the website, you'll find Overlake does have a sleep lab. Is that not correct? Okay, well, I'll send you some information that I have, and you can help me correct that.
Can I correct it?
Yes.
I think what you're seeing is Overlake Internal Medicine, that they have a sleep lab, and that is a private practice group. They go by the name of OIMA. there who has the sleep lab, and it has the Overlake name in it because of their group's name, Overlake Internal Medicine, but it is not the hospital.
It is not the hospital.
Right, and you, looking at the website, you would not know that.
Well, I just wondered if we consulted, since we're talking about some kind of relationship with Overlake, if we talked to this group, because, for example, Swedish used to have a sleep lab, and they closed it down because of lack of participation. Right now, they have one full-time and one part-time excellent sleep doctors. They're really excellent, but they don't have a lab there, and they don't have labs at their other hospitals, with the exception of 3, Redmond, and I can't remember the other 2. So, of course, in Seattle, they have one, and Redmond and one other. But they've closed down their sleep labs because of lack of interest and lack of participation. And I just wondered, did we do a study about the needs as well as the cost of adding sleep lab? Because I think this should have been a board decision, and not just an administrative decision as to whether to have one. That's my opinion.
Any other comments?
Well, I think when you say it's a board decision, I see it as more operational, that they decide, the executive officers of the hospital decides how to operate this. They can relay the information to us and we can talk about it, discuss about it. But as far as us getting involved, the commission, that is operational matter.
Yes, Jen.
I think it's a policy matter.
Excuse me, Commissioner Pollard.
May I be recognized?
No, you may
All
not.
right.
Jen had started to
Oh,
speak.
Jen, go ahead.
Oh,
Excuse me.
But it's a new topic though, away from the sleep labs.
That's all right, we still are
Sure.
All right.
recommending.
Oops, my earring. I just wanted to say that my family was at the 4th of July daytime and evening events, and it was wonderful to see all the signage and how accessible the booth was, and that's really great community outreach. So as a local parent, I just wanted to say kudos and thank you for doing that.
Commissioner Pollard, did you have something else you wanted to say for the medical committee? Address the medical committee?
Well, I just think that this was a policy issue, not an administrative issue. And there is this gray area between policy and administration that we have to watch very carefully. But I think this should not have been a staff's decision, which is what it was. It should have been a board decision, one way or the other.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we will move on. Quality Steering Committee appointment, or, Facilities Committee. I wasn't there.
The old ones didn't.
Yeah, it did not occur. I wasn't there, Emma wasn't there. I think the staff was.
It's been rescheduled.
Yes,
It's been
rescheduled.
rescheduled.
Okay, all right.
All
It was
right.
right after the lake show then. Or what?
Yeah, we didn't do very well, either one of us.
We were all exhausted.
Okay, Quality Steering. Okay. Jen, we are going to appoint you to the Quality Steering Committee. I need to make that appointment publicly. It's yours. And it meets, oh, and the medical, you knew about medical already, didn't you?
We haven't talked about it, I heard about it, but,
Okay.
yeah, I'd like to talk offline about the time commitment for medical committee. I just want to make sure
It works.
that I can, yeah, that I can do honor to the position. but-
All right, why don't
We have no
we,
choice. You have no option. You have to join, you're appointed.
Oh,
That's right.
you are appointed by the, that's what the bylaw says.
Yes.
okay,
But we can talk about it. That doesn't mean we can't talk about it.
okay.
Okay, so if you want to talk more about that later, we can. And then bring it back if we need to.
Okay.
All right. New business, King County Search and Rescue Update.
And we have Jennifer
I think he's gonna.
Friends, I hope I didn't butcher your last name. She's the president of King County Search and Rescue, and wants to update us on what's going on there and how the site works.
Could you say her name again for us?
Sure, Jennifer Brennis.
Hi,
It's
Jennifer.
R-E-N-E-S. Hi, nice to meet you all. Finally, heard so much about you guys. I took over from my predecessor in January, and Glenn and I have worked on the executive board of the association for probably 6 or 7 years. So there was pretty fluid turnover between him and I, which is really great. I had a nice meeting with Stephen Scott, I guess it feels like a month ago.
Probably, yeah.
It has been incredibly busy for us this season. It's been incredibly busy. But I shared with Stephen Scott what this site across the street did for us in this February when we had the major snow events. Keep in mind, we never had a site before that. We had our search gear and apparatus and volunteers spread out all over the county from Everett Bothell to all the way down to Renton and Maple Valley and south of there. And so when the snow event happened, which was predominantly on this site anyway, that facility became sort of a secondary satellite EOC center, believe it or not. So we had volunteers at the EOC center that were communicating directly with our volunteers here. We took our command rig, one of the big trucks you see out there, and we popped up the antenna, and we became a secondary communications satellite for the EOC. And then our volunteers spent the first initial days of the snow event, because the snow came, and then it came, and then it came more. So the first initial couple of days, our volunteers were transporting critical staff. So our 4x4 and quads and snowmobiles and rigs were transporting 911 operators and nurses and doctors to hospitals from their residences, emergency command staff to the emergency command center, or shelter operators to the shelters so they could get up and running. So we made, I believe, 35, well, I'm going to read it because it was February. It was a long time ago. So there was 8 hospital nurse transports, 35 emergency command center staff transports, 77 911 staff transports, 10 winter shelter staff transports. We had a PICU nurse from Mary Bridge Hospital that we had to do an urgent transport. We had Tacoma General transports, Good Samaritan, and then we also did the Snoqualmie Valley Shelter service. So that was in the initial days. Then as it stopped snowing, it became evident that Eastside Fire and Rescue was having a difficult time getting the final mile to their call-outs. And so we were then able to transition into a response with Eastside Fire, where we partnered at the fire stations in Carnation, Duval, May Valley, Maple Valley, and there's a 5th one in the Highlands here. We went out with the fire apparatus and helped transport them the final mile. They had a couple fatalities of a heart attack and a few others that it took them 45 minutes to get to the person, and unfortunately they passed. I believe they had a structure fire that they just couldn't get to. So they realized pretty quickly that they were over their ski tips, literally and figuratively. And so we were really able to partner with them. And then as the bigger roads got cleared, then it was the final 100 yards in those final days. And at that point, I'm sure you all experienced then that the National Guard kind of came in at some point. And where we became helpful at that point, the National Guard focused on food, getting food to people, and firewood, and if they had no power, helping them get more. Where we started helping is transporting medications to critical patients, and we had one person who was on dialysis that we, believe it or not, we had to get the sheriff's office has a snowcat, and so we had to take the snowcat in, and we had Dow along with us. So we took Dow out there with us and got the dialysis patient to their treatment. So, but I told Stephen Scott all this, and they're like, they should hear this. That all happened from this site. And the only reason we could respond that way was because all our gear was in one place, and our volunteers had a central place to hunker down. They slept out there for a few days, just because we were a 24-hour machine for that period. So I just want to come and say thank you, because we really felt good about being able to do that to the community.
I think it is awesome
Yeah.
that you were able to do that, that you guys are willing to go out, that anybody's willing to go out in that kind of weather and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I used to work at Harborview's ER, and people like you are what we depend on at times like this. So I am really grateful, and it's good to hear what you had to share.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
anybody
Well, thank you.
else have any other comments? Commissioner Paula?
I just wonder how you relate to the first responders, the fire departments, because a lot of the things you describe also are being done by the fire departments.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we deploy under the sheriff's office, a completely different command structure than the fire. They're under KCEMS. We are under the sheriff's office. However, we abide by KCEMS policy when it comes to first aid and safety-related stuff. And so it requires that our sheriff's coordinator, our SAR coordinator, be pretty intertwined with the fire chiefs and the KCEMS staff, and they are. So periodically, I also meet with their, because I'm a volunteer, and so, the sheriff's office leads point on that, but on occasion, I will meet with the fire chiefs also and make sure that we're collaborating with them. It's really no different than what we experience on a typical SAR call-out on Mount Si or Cougar Mountain, Tiger Mountain. Sometimes they will get called out too, which is fine with us. If there's an urgent matter, we want best person to get there. And so this is nothing new. We've worked with them many times. Yeah.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Just thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
I mean, our volunteers are invigorated and excited, and the camaraderie around a place, it's pretty huge. I think you guys can all understand. This is a building, and you come here and you can.
Home. It's a home.
That's really what that's becoming, and so it's incredible. It's incredible. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. We appreciate it. It's time for public comment. Do I see or hear anybody that has public comment? I think I do.
For the record, my name is Scott Scowcroft from West Seattle. I was interested to hear that the community health needs assessment is back as a topic of conversation. And I'm excited about it because I can see where that needs assessment that's updated from the previous ones that you've had can be used to help guide this board in negotiations for what the district would want to do after affiliation. So I would encourage you to think about timing not only in a financial filter, but also at what point would it benefit you to know what the updated public health needs of the valley are in relationship to your negotiations with Overlook, both in knowing what you want to ask for, and then in addition to that, how much. Changing the topic entirely, I'm also observing today, I'm not exactly sure how important the order of commissioner names on a piece of paper is. That just kind of confuses me. And it also confuses me. I think that it's not in the best interest of the hospital district that the warrants would not be approved. I would like to, that just seems to me to be something that would be patently wrong in terms of being a representative of wanting what's best for the district. So that also confuses me as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have next on my agenda, new business, action items. There are none. And we now are at the point where we have the good of the order, commissioner comment. Each commissioner shall have one comment period limited to 3 minutes. So, Emma, would you like to start?
I have no comments. All right, thank you.
Commissioner
I'm
Sullivan?
fine.
Jen?
I do. I would like to thank the taxpayers for sponsoring our trip to the Washington State Hospital Association Conference. It was very informative. There was an emphasis on compassion and quality. There were networking opportunities for similar hospital districts, which I feel I really greatly benefited from as a new member of the board. And it set us up for a successful remainder to the year. I also feel strongly about the community health needs assessment. It's important to have that guidance of our own priorities. Coming out of the transaction, so we can continue to serve the health and wellness of our community. But I also note later in the year is still within our guidelines and perhaps is the best fiduciary move for us. So I note that, but I am going to continue to push that this is a very important deliverable for us this year.
Commissioner Pollard.
Well, I'm just concerned that we're focusing so much on the financials with respect to the negotiations with Overlake that we may be losing out on the community perception of this undertaking. And we're checking all the boxes regarding procedure and finances and legal maneuvers and so forth. But the community, I think, is not sold on this. I've heard a lot of criticism of Overlake. They are not rated as one of the 6 best hospitals in the Puget Sound area. They are high performing in only 2 areas, which is hip and knee surgery. And so that's not something we're going to be able to use out here. There are considerable as a matter of fact, we heard during the time we were interviewing for a replacement commissioner, one of the applicants even said, related a very unfortunate experience at Overlake. I had my own unfortunate experience at Overlake. And it's hard for me to forget that, even though I've tried to put that aside and look at it objectively. I guess what I'm saying is we got a selling job to do to the community if they're going to come to this hospital, regardless of how wonderful we check the boxes. So that's my point.
Thank you, Commissioner Pollard. I would probably be with Jen. I really enjoyed going to Chelan. I learned a lot. I thought our last speaker was very interesting, very transparent as a bipolar individual, and thought he was entertaining at the same time he was very transparent. And I found it very interesting. So that was one of my favorites. Well, now that we've done the good and the order, we are going to move to an executive session and with a review of a performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42-3011.110. So I'm going to ask the public to please leave. Do I have to read this whole thing exactly like this? Oh, I have to read it like this. The Board of Commissioners is authorized to meet in an executive session under RCW 42.30110 to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee. However, subject to discussion by a governing body of salaries, wages, and other conditions of employment to be generally applied within the agency shall occur in a meeting open to the public when the governing body elects to take final action hiring, setting the salary of an individual employee or a class of employees, or discharging or disciplining an employee. That action shall be taken in a meeting open to the public. Pursuant to this authority, the board will now go into executive session to discuss these matters. It is anticipated that the executive session will conclude in approximately 45 minutes with no final action having been taken. So I would ask that the public now leave, please.